Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for another Sims 4 speed video. I was going to say speed build, but it's another renovation. It's a partial build. It's a renovation of Municipal Muses, and it's also me building a bistro behind the museum. And so it's kind of like a combination lot, and the reason why I've done this is because I really wanted to renovate the museum, kind of maintain its original look so that, you know, it still kind of fits in with the surroundings of the world and the Willow Creek kind of theme, and just my renovations in general, where I'm trying to maintain the kind of the look and the feel of the original builds with my renovations. But it's also got a bistro on the back of the lot, and I did that because I just find museums to be almost pointless. They are very, I don't know, like they're pretty boring to go to, in my opinion. There's not really much to do there. The base game museums, I mean, yeah, there's not much to them. I know they were kind of updated a little bit in City Living. Well, they weren't really updated the museum venue, but the Sims team kind of created a new venue called the Arts Centre, which made museums a little more purposeful. But this isn't an art centre. It's basically, it can kind of function as two different lots depending on what you kind of classify it as and if you have mods installed. So I've got the bistro at the back, and I have this venue saved as a restaurant, so it'll function as a restaurant. And you know, the correct NPCs will spawn, and you know, other diners will spawn and all that, so it functions perfectly as a restaurant. And then there's kind of the museum as, I guess, an extra to the build. You know, once your Sims have kind of had a dine or a bite to eat, or maybe had a date at this little bistro here, then they can maybe go look at some artwork in the museum next door, or just hang out in the little park next to these two lots. Because what I really like about this build is I like the green space. It's quite cute, and it actually looks really nice. Like, I feel like it's not the landscaping, the default landscaping that it comes with is actually pretty decent. But I do change it up a little bit, make it a bit more lush, and of course I just need to change the sizing of it a bit to accommodate the bistro, and I kind of wanted a little bit of an alleyway to be between the two buildings and the green space. So yes, it functions perfectly as a restaurant. I do play with Zerbu's spawn refresh mod, and what that means is that when this is operating as a restaurant, this lot here, the mod allows for, I think if you have City Living installed, the Art Center NPCs to spawn on the lot as well. And so what happens is that Sims will kind of use both venues at the same time. They won't just all flock to the restaurant and only use the restaurant. Whereas I found that without that mod installed, Sims would only really use the restaurant, and the museum was mostly empty. So I guess the downside of playing with this lot in a vanilla game is that the museum is a bit of a ghost town. But I mean, I guess that's kind of realistic. Museums aren't always really that crowded. I mean, the type of museum that is in Willow Creek, I can't imagine that getting very crowded anyway, given the type of stuff that's inside it. But yes, with the mod installed, it does work a bit better, and I'm quite pleased with that, because yeah, like, I do like to send my Sims out into the world a lot. And I mean, just the way the Sims 4 works, you know, the loading screens between different lots, I don't like to send them to, you know, multiple lots at a time. Usually I like to send them out to one place and have them hang out there for an extended period of time. So it's kind of like you can send them out to the restaurant, have them get some food, and then they can either hang out in the green space or go to the museum next door. So I feel like it works quite well. So talking about the build of the bistro, so I wanted it to be cute and cozy, and so I've used the Cozy Bistro set because I feel like that kind of fits perfectly with the theme that I was going for. I didn't want like this kind of bustling chain restaurant or anything. I wanted it to be very quaint and cozy. So it's not cramped, but you'll see that there's not much space to move about. But that was kind of the idea that I was going for. I wanted it to be an intimate experience. So I've used the Cozy Bistro set, and of course I've used Dine Out as well to get the restaurant functionality. So there are 2 packs installed, and yeah, I feel like it comes together quite nicely. I really love the Cozy Bistro set, and I love the swatches that it comes with, and I really love the windows on the exterior. They just add some nice detail to all builds, I think, and just the panel texture, the wooden panel texture is quite nice. With the flooring, I go for the nice green and kind of yellow tile, and I tried to bring out more of the yellow with the booth chairs here, but in the end it just felt a little too much, so I was happy for the yellow just to kind of be in the floor tile. Later on in the build you'll see me change the color of the booths to more of a cream white. And then I've got these dividers here. Now what really irritates me about these dividers is that they don't slot against, I guess, the edge of tiles like other dividers do, or the Dine Out ones especially, where you can make like nice little sectioned off areas that are evenly spaced. And they slot behind booths really well, whereas the ones that came with the Cozy Bistro set, they don't slot very nicely, so I had to kind of manually slot them behind the booths, so that was a bit annoying. There's also a bar with the bar shelves behind it, and I really love these objects as well, like the additional kind of sets that came with the bar, or the, I can't remember what that shelf is called. I know it has a purpose, like a proper name for the shelving units that go behind bars, but I can't remember the name of them. But I like the additions of those, how it's not just the one object, it comes with 2 other objects, 2 other shelves that complement the bigger one. It's got a couple of unisex bathrooms, and of course it has a small kitchen as well. And here I'm just kind of making this little cabinet piece here to kind of fill up that space, putting in these blinds, and then I'm just playing around with some resizing in the placement of objects. So I'm putting up these wall decals here. They don't stay, I just feel like they didn't really fit the theme with what I did here, but I will probably do this in another build of mine. And yeah, so there's lots of pictures, there's lots of plants. It is quite formal looking. I didn't want it to look tacky, I wanted it to look quite classy. So yeah, there's lots of kind of, really traditional looking paintings and decor about the place. And going in with some lights here, I really like these wall lights too. I just like the whole set. I think it's really nice, it's really cohesive, and it's easily one of my favorite kits. The only thing that, or one of the other things actually beside the dividers, is this kind of ceiling mounted kind of shelf for bottles and all that. Like just how it only came with one height, so it's really only made for the short wall height, and this build uses the medium wall height, and I really wanted to use this object, so I had to go into debug and kind of get some, I guess, poles that made it look like the shelf came further down the ceiling. And I really wanted to use it, and I was thinking, how did Maxis use it? So I went and looked at some kind of promotional pictures that Maxis released for the Cozy Bistro kit, and they actually used that object on a medium wall height, and they've even got it in their bistro. They've used it on a medium height wall, but it's like all the way up at the top of the ceiling, and it just looks stupid like that. Like, if Sims wanted to use it, then they'll probably have to get like a ladder or something to get any of the bottles off of it, which is seems like a bit of a hazard and impractical in my opinion. So I was glad I was able to find those objects, those little poles in the debug menu, and kind of play around with them a bit so that it looks like the shelves extended. And just decorating the shelves behind the bar, putting in some clutter. So we've got some books and a jar of chilies, and I think there's some wine there as well. And then I've got this reward object, I think that's from the culinary career. And then the little glasses and menu tray there. And then I'm just playing around with the position of different objects. I really love these pictures. I think they're so cool. And they've got a good amount of swatches to them too, so I'm quite pleased with those. And what I do with the exteriors, I actually have one of them as the sign. I think that I've already shown that I've made that the sign for the bistro. But yeah, I thought that was quite cool. And I've got a little sectioned off area for the host station, the host stand, and just putting in the or a counter next to it, so the area looks so that little space there looks a little more full and purposeful or useful, and then some seating for any guests that might be waiting for a table. So I was talking about mods earlier, and the mods that I use for this game, for restaurant, for this lot, and just for restaurant gameplay in general, because I know one of the biggest complaints about Dine Out is just how buggy it is. I know in one of the recent patches, Max has made some improvements to Dine Out, and what I found was that even with the mods that I had installed, the mods that supposedly fix or improve Dine Out, I was still experiencing a lot of issues, particularly with Sims kind of getting out of their seats and wandering around the restaurant and just being annoying in general. And I thought, well, maybe they haven't fixed it. Maybe they were just, they fixed one issue and there was a whole bunch of issues floating about in terms of restaurant gameplay. And I was getting a bit frustrated with it because I really like restaurant gameplay in all of the Sims games. I think besides, in terms of restaurant gameplay, I think Sims 1 and Sims 2 have pretty solid restaurant gameplay. Like it's almost flawless in my opinion. And I think the next best type of restaurant gameplay is definitely The Sims 4, because The Sims 3 doesn't even really have restaurants, or it has rabbit hole restaurants. There was a restaurant set that came with the store, but it's nowhere near as fleshed out as anything that came in the other Sims games. But yeah, I do find that The Sims 4 has pretty good restaurant gameplay, and I do like playing in the restaurants, but I almost lost my train of thought, but I was saying that I really love restaurant gameplay, and I was getting frustrated with the gameplay that I was experiencing in The Sims 4, so I took out all of my mods just to see maybe if it was my mods that were causing an issue, and just played restaurants vanilla, and it actually worked pretty flawlessly. I wasn't really having any issues in vanilla restaurants. My Sims were being seated on time. They were staying in their seats. If they ever had to get up and use the bathroom or anything, they would go do that and then return back to their seat. And yeah, I just wasn't having any sort of issues, and I was like, what's going on here? So I ended up putting my restaurant mods back in, and that's kind of where I was encountering issues again. So I don't know, I've been playing without any restaurant mods since, and yeah, my restaurants have been, well, this particular restaurant anyway, has been working just fine. So I don't know what's going on. Perhaps I don't know. I know everyone's kind of setup in game can be a relatively unique experience. Not everyone experiences the same bugs, but yeah, I can say for now I'm kind of okay with the vanilla restaurant gameplay. So yeah, I mean, I have used Carl's restaurant mod before. I don't have that installed at the moment. I don't have it installed because it conflicts with the home regions mod. And I prefer to have the home regions mod that kind of limits where Sims can travel in any save file. But Carl's mod does conflict with that mod, so I don't use that one. But I use a few other mods well, I was using a few other mods that were made to improve the restaurant gameplay, but I don't use those anymore because, as I said, I haven't really been having any issues. So yes, so yeah, you can see now that the restaurant has pretty much come together. I'm just adding in some final touches. Got to add in my my light switches, because I feel like they just add the perfect amount of detail. And then I'm coming out to decorate the exterior here, just adding in some tables and chairs, and yeah, that's basically the exterior furnishings. Putting in some candles, and then a couple of plants here, and then I put in these planters here, which I think look quite nice, and they go with they're kind of like a continuation of the planters that are used in the rest of the world. And then I put in a restaurant sign, a menu kind of, I don't know what to call that, a menu sign display with a plant next to it. And just some lighting, and then yeah, that's pretty much the bistro done. And then I'm going to move on to the green space, and I had to kind of pull it in a little bit just so I could have a bit of an alleyway between the green space and the bistro and the museum. Well, actually, I'm not moving on to the green space. I decided to move on to the exterior of the museum. So yeah, I did want to maintain the original look. I took off the kind of the curved balcony and porch to start with, but then I put them back, so I think it actually looks quite nice. I really like the color scheme of the museum. I love this kind of it's almost like a very dark blue, almost like a blue-black kind of color, and I really love it. It's one of my favorite colors in the base game swatches, and I wanted to maintain that for the museum, so I kept that. I just took the fence off the top of the mansard roof there because I felt like that was a little too much going on there. So, and yeah, but other than that, just made things look a little more filled out, added some more windows. I was going to put a wrought iron fence around the just above the balcony, but decided against that, and now I'm just going and putting in a window on the top dormer there. And of course I've extended out the trees that line the streets, like I've got those on the other builds in Willow Creek, or the community lot builds at least. And yeah, just adding in a few more extra street details, so some more plants. We've got a seat there, and there is a trash can as well, and of course some more planters, and then just detailing up this little kind of alley a little bit more. And now I'm moving on to the green space. So yeah, I really like the green space. I've taken out a lot of the plants. Or have I taken them out? I think I have taken out some of the plants, but I did want to add in more plants and make it kind of more lush and more full, and kind of be more consistent with the landscaping I've been doing elsewhere in the world. I've used a lot of the debug trees, and I'm probably, I've done it because they don't cost anything, but I think they cause a bit of an issue where they don't have any, they don't influence the, so with eco lifestyle, how there's that feature where, the air quality, whether it's like industrial neutral or I think an eco space or something like that. I noticed that because I was using a lot of debug trees, the area became industrial. So whenever my Sims were coming to this kind of area of town, they were always like coughing and complaining about being outside. So, and I think that was just because the trees and the plants that I've been using weren't kind of adding any sort of footprint. They weren't adding to any sort of footprint. And so a lot of the building materials that I've been using for the builds kind of have, I think it's the industrial footprint, so it was making this area industrial. So I mean, if that becomes a problem for you, if you do play with eco lifestyle, I recommend just going in and replacing the debug trees with the normal trees that are just available in the vanilla catalog. But otherwise, yeah, if you don't play with eco lifestyle, you can just not worry about that. Or I think there might actually be a feature in game where you can turn the footprints off. I'm not 100% certain on that, but that's just an FYI for you if that becomes an issue. But yeah, as you can see, I've added in some more landscaping, some more plants. I kept in the fountain, of course, because I feel like that's a pretty cute feature. And I feel like, yeah, this would be a pretty nice place to come for a date. There's lots of seating areas. It's very pretty, and it's quite secluded as well. And it's, you know, if you just want some privacy with your date, you can come here and just, yeah, hang out by the bird bath maybe. I don't know. And I do come in and just fill in this little corner here, and then I place a chess table so that there is, you know, something to do. There is an activity in this little kind of green space or miniature park. And of course, adding in some necessary lights, and that is, I was going to use the light with the planters on it, but I just decided to use the debug one instead so that it matched the rest of the world. And now I'm inside the museum. And with this one, I mean, I really liked the red color scheme, so, well, that was upstairs, so I bring that downstairs, but I just wanted it to, the build to look a little more grand, so having this kind of big staircase here. I don't go crazy with the amount of kind of art pieces on display. I didn't want the walls to look too cluttered. I wanted it to look more kind of tidy. And you can see here I kind of had to add a space between the two staircases because they weren't centered with the entrance to the museum. And that was fine. Like, I thought at the start I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this space, because it just looks stupid. But in the end, I end up putting a fireplace on that wall piece there, the middle wall piece that's between the two staircases, and then that kind of, I guess, acts as like a chimney maybe. But yeah, as you can see, I've added in more red and kept the black railing and on the balustrade and the stair railing as well. Just fiddling around with the rooftop a little bit, and now I'm adding the chimneys because I've added in the fireplace. I do like to play, like to kind of detail my builds with more kind of realistic looking fireplaces. So if I ever place a fireplace and a chimney, like, I want the chimney to look like it's a part of the build. I like that feature in The Sims 2 and Sims 3 where you place a fireplace and it automatically places a chimney that goes like right throughout the building, like it's connected to the fireplace and then it goes right through the building and sticks out the top of the roof. It can be a little bit annoying because you can't recolor them in those games, so you kind of end up with this default red brick. I know The Sims 3 has a couple of other fireplaces that don't have the default red brick. They've got some variation in color, but you are kind of stuck with the default red brick. So I guess that's the only downside to them, but I do miss them. But I mean, in saying that, like, there is some flexibility because with platforms, you kind of can create a pseudo chimney of sorts and then just close off or make the chimney look more realistic by closing off the chimney space with a platform. So I've got this nice entryway here with what's like a reception, some seating, and I've just got the fireplace, and I just added a steamboat sculpture there as well. And so I wanted the museum to have like different areas that kind of had a specific, I guess, exhibition. So this one is the gnome exhibition. So all these pedestals have gnomes on them. There was a great way to use some of these ridiculous looking gnomes that I'm never going to put in anyone else's garden. or anyone's garden for that sake. So I thought that would be quite cool to have like a section for those in the museum. And then this side is just dedicated to like sculptures, and I kept the knight armor sculpture, but I replaced the other sculptures to be I think kind of like the vehicles, like the cars and the plane and the train and the carriages. I don't think I keep the bust, the woman's bust. I think I get rid of that. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, like it's not too cluttered or anything. Like museums aren't really that cluttered. There's a lot of space between exhibits. So I did want to have this place look, kind of tidy and spacious, and yeah. So that's basically how it's looking. Just adding in some rugs for a bit more detail, and yeah, I think the swatches go quite nicely with the curtains and the seats. Now I'm adding in some plants and replacing the ceiling lights as well. So I'll go with these kind of black and red ceiling lights, and yeah, just adding in some more detail behind the reception area, adding in some paintings, and I'm looking for the that little coat rack thing there. So I've moved to the upstairs area, and I wanted this place to be solely for pictures, and I wanted the pictures to be kind of like the Willow Creek theme, so a lot of the jazz paintings, kind of traditional looking paintings. There's a couple of modern looking ones, but yeah, I just wanted it to look more traditional. I think when I start moving to Oasis Springs, that's when I'm going to start using like a lot of the more modern furniture and yeah, like just the modern looking things. So I think this painting here and maybe some paintings along these big walls where the chimney is are where the only kind of modern paintings are, whereas everything else is kind of more traditional looking. And I like building in traditional styles anyway, so it's not hugely a huge bummer to me. But yeah, and I added in that little, I think that's a Chinese New Year statue there. And now I'm just doing some final details on the museum, so you can see it's it's just a standard museum. I don't really think there's much more you can do with a museum. I do put an art easel out on the balcony, but I don't think you actually see me place it in the footage. I came back and did it in the screenshots. And yeah, and then I do the bathrooms as well, but they're not really that exciting. We do see that in a minute. I think I'm coming up to do it now. Yeah, here we go. With the red tile, and yeah, the bathroom furniture pretty much stays the same because yeah, it's just a typical bathroom. They're not really that, public bathrooms aren't really that exciting to decorate. And all the furniture in here was fine and kind of went with the style that I was going for anyway. So yeah, there wasn't really much of a need to change anything. And yeah, but they are quite dark, but I'm all about that moody lighting, so it's no big deal to me. This little alleyway here, I just came and added some detail to that. So we've got some wheelie bins and some crates and just an empty wheelbarrow there, and of course some lights for the alleyway as well. So now we're moving into the screenshots, and I will leave you to enjoy these and say thanks so much for watching. As always, it's been a pleasure to bring this to you. This will be available to download, and my gallery ID is minosimu_NZ. So if you'd like to download it, feel free to go to the gallery and check it out. Otherwise, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your day and say take care, and I will talk to you later.